All right.
Good
Welcome,
afternoon,
guys. How
everyone.
we doing? All right.
Doing great. How about you?
No complaints. We went from 90 on Saturday. Now we're down to probably 60 today. It's, this weather is just a
Same.
roller coaster.
I wish it was 60 here.
But
Uh,
it's, yeah, I
It's the
mean,
same kind of weather we've had here in Virginia. Same
yeah,
thing.
yeah, it's definitely, and then it'll be that constant complaining of how hot it is and wish it was cooler. And then, so
But do you got your pool open yet?
I do. I do. Pool's
Okay.
looking
All right.
good. Yeah, yeah. My
You're ready
son
then.
jumped in the pool when the Rangers beat Pittsburgh at 10,
All
11
right.
o'clock at night, and just it was
Well,
55
well, when
degrees.
the Rangers beat Pittsburgh, even if the pool's not ready, we can jump in. It's okay. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you for watching. We are the Reboot. Another engaging episode this week. Talking about ensuring your remote workforce is safe, as we've seen over the years or the last couple of years. That model is not going away. It's been embraced more and more by different size companies. I mean, there's companies that we actually market to that we're getting their mail kicked back because they're just not open. Everyone is just working remote. And we're seeing even in the hiring phases, trying to get people, they're depicting whether or not they want to work remote, or that's a requirement for a potential employee, and whether or not you agree with it, that's what's happening out there. So we're going to discuss our top 3, 4, 5 issues that we see from some of our existing clients, and then go over some solutions for you. Before we get into that, we are the Reboot. I am Brian Bracci. I'm with B&L PC Solutions on Long Island, New York. And on this side, I have.
I am Dave Groot with WinStar Technologies in Culpeper, Virginia.
And I'm Brandon Bowers with Eisner Amper Managed Technology Services. And I'm going to apologize up front. I had a cold over the weekend and not fully recovered. So my voice is a little raspy.
You got one of those Miami colds or Florida colds, right?
Listen, allergies are going around too, man. It's at least up here. It's been really, really bizarre. All right, so let's get into it, guys. Let's talk about some of the there's some are more obvious than others on these issues. So just obviously the obvious ones are obvious, but the solutions may not be as easy to implement as you would think. So you have to make sure that they're done not only correctly but securely, and they're following company policies. So Dave, Brandon, what do you want to start with?
I think the first thing, if you're going to talk about anything, is just the fact that when they're not working, from the office, they're generally working from home, right? You take the travelers and but the people who are remote workforce generally are using their home consumer products for the fact of getting on the internet, potentially for their computer use. So I guess the first issue that I see often is just people going home to work and not having the same equipment or security stack installed and set up as they would if they were on corporate assets in the office.
100%. Yeah. And I think a big part of that was that surge during COVID for equipment. Not only did we have a chip shortage from Taiwan or wherever it was, so getting equipment was hard. So we had clients going out and buying their own stuff at Staples, whatever they can get their hands on, and kind of almost telling us like, let's get access for now, and then we'll address, we'll
whatever holes we punch open.
So we obviously you can do that securely, and that's what we did. But the second piece of that is now we're trying to revisit these people, and it's like, well, they're good, right? They've been working for 2 years. It's like, wait, hold on. You want the device to be compliant. We're kind of, I don't want to say we're abandoning it, but in essence we are. But they're not performing to their potential, which is probably another one of our issues is productivity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you're definitely going to get a productivity issue with the lower grade hardware, right? And when we're buying consumer hardware, security obviously is out the door. That you're not getting the professional version.
Oh, there he goes. I guess I'm taking over the show.
All right. So anyway,
I'll put you back over there. Hold on.
All right.
I don't know where you went though.
Yeah. So
you're saying the hardware is different, is not as robust as.
It's not the same stack. It doesn't have encrypted hard drives and EDR and all the things that we're doing to monitor and make sure things patching, all that kind of stuff. Not to mention they're shared, right? Those computers are shared. my kids are using them, my husband, my wife, whatever, like they're who knows what anybody's doing. They're Facebooking, and
And
it's
what other
very easy.
software is on
That's
those?
right.
So
So
somebody have BitTorrent running on there, downloading.
Yeah.
Other
I guess,
software, things like that.
there still is a world out there for like Napster or something, isn't there? I don't know. Does anybody do that anymore? But
And ironically, I know this is addressed, or we're focusing, specifically on the remote workforce, but there's prospects I go into now that have, that have hardware that I'm like, you're not productive with this. Running an i3 with 4 gig of RAM, it's just like you're just not, and it's 7 years old.
And no wonder they hate IT.
Exactly.
Right? Because their impression is like, oh my God, you're going to slow me down. You're going to kill me.
I would hate
terrible.
IT on an i3 with 4K. I don't think I could function.
I wouldn't let anybody in my company have one. So I would just throw it away. It wouldn't happen. But I mean, so, what we did in that transition stage and still today is with our clients, we very much encourage that they stay with corporate assets, right? So look, it's one thing if I'm going to have somebody working from home, but if I'm going to have them working from home, at least I'm going to put them on a machine that I have some control over, that I can make sure is secure, is patched, is not vulnerable, and I can determine by looking at the logs and everything else what's going on. Mm-hmm. When you get into private consumer-owned products, there is a definite privacy and security issue if you try and monitor their activity while they're working on those devices. So that's another thing outside of the cybersecurity threat you don't want to open yourself up to.
And the simple things people would like to or ask why they can't on said home device. I'm working, I want to grab this document, I want to copy it over to the network. It's like, well, no, that's we're blocking it. Well, I can't work then. And I said, well, we know that, and that's on purpose. Until we can address the issue, replace the asset or do whatever we have to do.
Right.
You can't. And that's, and that's a big one that we were getting for a while. And, and we've seen people that we talk to that can do that. And they don't, it's almost like they don't care about the risk or, I tell them, you can't tell me you don't understand the risk because I've explained it to you, what can happen. So, but they need to do it. They don't. There's solutions out there. There's controls we can put in place.
It doesn't have to be hard.
Right. I mean, exactly.
I'm not saying it's got to be costly or anything goofy, but
the other big issue is, so number one, typically looking at consumer hardware, software, other things like that, you don't know what's on that machine. But the next piece of that is you're expanding your perimeter, right? So you're focused on all this protection within your office. Now all of a sudden you're making this big hole that goes to their home and now is opening up to everything else that is potentially on that network. And what is on that network? There's Nest thermostat, there's refrigerators, there's the son's iPad, or what other streaming devices are there on the network? And now
I have over 30 on my home network, 30 devices, but speakers and you, like you're talking about, you name it. I mean, it's so there's that, like you're saying.
I mean, you're basically the potential. Then what happens now? So you've got the consumer device where if they potentially did pull data over, you've got no visibility on now, right? Or if you've got a VPN set up, there's the potential that some of those devices now are exposed to your network depending on how things are set up. I mean, that's a huge risk right there.
Right.
Well, that's just one risk, right? I mean, like there's keystroke loggers, there's there's just, it goes on and on and on and on. If I'm sitting at home on a compromised machine and I'm accessing corporate resources through that machine, the risk is just exponential. I mean, it's like kind of like, well, I don't know. I don't want to equate it to unprotected sex, but I mean, that's kind of like what you're doing. You're taking a gamble, right? You're saying, okay, look, it didn't happen the last 2 times, so I'm not going to have a pregnancy this time or whatever, okay. Right. I know that's not the topic we're talking about, but it's the same thing. People can understand that.
So the first 2 things were like really security related. The other thing is also productivity and accountability. Like, are your workers actually doing the work or working the entire day? Are they there at the computer doing what you're paying them for? And
Yeah. Are they working the entire day? Have you updated your company policies to reflect working from home so that we can have an expectation of amount of time on keyboard, what a break is, when a break is to be taken, what am I to do on this computer with a break? I'm at home, but that doesn't mean I can use the corporate computer to go to Facebook on my break. That's not a policy in the office. I'm not able to do it, and I'm not able to do it here. Then there's the legal liability, again, if you're trying to monitor. And then there's just the loss of production, right? Like, I mean, customer service is sucking everywhere these days because of COVID and this lack of people wanting to work and not enough help and not enough staff and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
So
there's something that you lose when you don't have as much interaction with one another, even internally as a team too.
Right.
You're not seeing each other as
sure.
often.
Right.
I don't know. You're losing something.
Yeah, and you're not. There's no collaboration between people in real time, other than unless you're doing a meeting or something like that. But the day-to-day stuff, like I know my guys, they bounce off of each other real time if they're working on something. It's just so you lose that cohesiveness of a team. And another part of the remote workforce too that needs to be like make sure that you have a quality product is your VoIP solution, right? Your communication with your clients. And does that mean bringing a company phone home and plugging it in, or using an app that they have? And what if you have crappy Wi-Fi at home and the call quality is not, so there's other variables too that, listen, if I get a client on the phone and I'm all choppy and I call back and I'm all choppy, they don't want to talk to me, right? It's just not, it doesn't, and I don't want to call a vendor and not be able to hear them because they're, so that's
you
something.
Bring up a really good point though. This
I
is
usually
something
do.
that
That's
I
usually
feel
my specialty is bringing up the good points.
But this has got to be one of the biggest things that you guys have seen over the last 2 years.
Oh yeah.
Somebody started working from home. There's no Ethernet cable going to their modem. They're working on like the second floor on Wi-Fi, but Wi-Fi is very spotty. And so the quality of everything goes down, right? So your remote access into the office is slow. Your VoIP phone and calling a customer is now choppy and you're having issues. So that's definitely like network throughput or quality is a big issue.
Or worse than that, the employee is using their personal mobile phone and they're calling from that, or they're texting, or they're providing non-corporate contact information to,
which they wouldn't do if they were in the office, right? I mean,
maybe I wouldn't think they would,
but
because your process wouldn't allow for that, right? Like that, and I guess that brings the point of all of the processes and procedures generally were developed with the idea that we were going to be in the office working with each other. So companies who have embraced the remote workforce need to revisit all those policies and procedures to make sure that they're still relevant to the workflow.
I think that's what needs to be addressed today. Is now we've gone through the pandemic, and now if you want to embrace and grow on this remote workforce, these are things. Now let's talk about some solutions, right? How we can make it a better experience and make it just as close as you can to that in-office experience, right? And the quality and the at home, the Wi-Fi, that's a big one. That needs to be. I would say that's probably priority, is making sure that the employees have, whether it be, you go on site, you do an assessment, and you make adjustments, or you just tell them, listen, the quality of your network is not going to support what we need you to do. And how do you fix that? And there's ways to fix that, but that's, connectivity is up there.
It's hard to provide the support for that. Mm-hmm. And usually the recommendations that we give is, hey, can you move your office to where the modem is?
Yeah.
Or have somebody run a physical cable, while you're working and use that. Like, those are the simplest things.
Sure.
There's not a lot of other great options that I can think of, because it's difficult for even an IT company, a local IT company, to go to everybody's house and service them and do a Wi-Fi survey, and like it's just not
I mean,
realistic.
if I have it my way, I take it as far as just saying wireless is not acceptable on any level. Right. And, you don't always get to say that, especially when it's the CEO who lives on a mountain and they're, in the middle of nowhere. You're going to figure something out, but that's one person instead of the whole organization, right?
Yeah. Now, I would go as far as saying, if you can get yourself, I don't even know if they're out yet, but like a 5G LTE enabled Surface Book or something like that.
Sure.
That and you have good signal. I think that would be better than relying on your home network. You've eliminated all the devices, and you're on that network, and you'd be much more productive than where you are now. So that's one.
So that's the first
solution
thing. Internet. That's the key.
Yeah.
So then
productivity,
and then security.
Yeah.
Right, of the connection. We have embraced a program called ActiveTrack, and we use that. It does a screenshot recording of the employee's activities all day long, every so often. Every time the screen changes, it takes a shot of that screen, and it allows you to be able to pull reports and set up triggers and look for keywords and different stuff to make sure that people are on task, as well as it gives you metrics, productivity wise, because you're able to dictate what tasks are productive versus which tasks are not. And you can
it pulls, which I like is that Johnny is on Facebook for 80% of the day. Well, Johnny's our marketing person, and Johnny better be on Facebook for 80%.
That's right.
So
that's productive for Johnny.
Maybe Susan shouldn't be, So
that's right.
So in that regard, you can literally in seconds just see, wow, this guy spent 40% of his time on social media, and he shouldn't have been. So right there, you can see that in real time. And what was that called again, David? That was ActiveTrack, right?
ActiveTrack. Yep.
Okay.
ActiveTrack is great. I've had great experiences with that. Sometimes I find people think that may be too intrusive, or maybe just don't want to pay for a solution. And one thing to consider is if you're using like Office 365 and you're using Teams to collaborate internally, there's built-in reports in the systems. I mean, number one, if you're in Teams or Slack or one of these other tools, you can see the status of your employees, right? They're either green or they're idle. You can see how long they've been idle. And then some of those systems do have the capability at least to run a report and say, hey, what was their activity like? Have they been logged in? Have they been active in the system?
Oh, well, they were active until 10 o'clock last night. Okay, so maybe that's why they're late this morning or whatever,
Yeah.
Quick
That's at least a way you could potentially gauge or get a little bit of a pulse, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, and it definitely helps you keep an eye on what's going on.
Sure.
I think when it comes to productivity too, when we were talking about like losing that sense of having the team together, is that at least these tools provide the ability to like, oh, hey, you need some help. Click of a button and you're on video and you're talking to one another and you can see each other. Our policy, which we kind of changed. Hey, you know what? Yeah, it's okay that you're working remote, but every time we have a call, we're going to be on video and we're going to see each other, and we're going to try and increase that amount of interaction, because otherwise I feel like, again, it goes back to you're losing that sense of relationship and community within the team, and I think that it's hard to gauge what the cost of that is. Yeah.
Right.
FaceTime is important, so you do it, however you can.
I mean, I hate to say it, we're in technology, but people are people. They still need to be people.
Yeah.
Right. And technology has come a long way. I mean, it's
too.
made it great. But
like a cloud report or something you mentioned too, right? I don't know if you want to share that.
Yeah, it was. I mean, so with Microsoft, there's the Microsoft Delve is a program that managers can use to look at activity of their employees and staff, as well as anybody who's in teams with them, right? So they can see what's been shared and by all the colleagues and that kind of thing. And then there's a couple of Power BI charts and graphs that you can incorporate into things like Microsoft Teams or whatever, where you can see the average buy-in per employee. Are they using their email? Are they using their apps? Are they doing the different things that can give you insights? On top of that, if you're in a higher class SKU, I mean, they got all kinds of stuff where it'll watch for insider threat. It'll watch their behavior and their communication in teams and everything else, and let you know if there's something going on that doesn't look right. It'll start to point that out to you based on just machine learning.
Not to always be drinking the Microsoft Kool-Aid.
Oh, come on, why not?
But we've got so many customers that are leveraging that platform, and I mean, I think we hit a lot in terms of the productivity. But when it comes to the consumer grade and opening up the network perimeter, I mean, 365 does have a lot of great solutions for businesses. I mean, we've got customers right now where, hey, they've got a new employee, remote employee overseas, because everybody knows how easy it is to hire and find quality people right now, right?
Right.
But we can just add a Windows 365 license to them, and in 15 minutes, they've got like a desktop that they can remote into. We can have corporate, protection on it. They're not like they're connecting from their home machine, but they're going into a secured environment now, with all of their office protections. And so what I want to illustrate is there are easy solutions to some of this.
Yeah, remote desktops is a great way to handle that. The other side of it is, VPN, or in many cases in the beginning of COVID, we started sending people home with they're like personal VPN boxes, right? Like, so it's like a little Cisco Meraki or, a couple different vendors. They make them, you bring them home, you plug them into your home network, you put your corporate computer behind it. Now it's firewall and it's protected from the house and all that stuff. But the bigger thing is software defined networking. That's been a very big advance over the last couple of years in that area, and it's allowed us to now build a fictitious or a virtual network up into a cloud, and all of these remote devices can be considered part of that same physical perimeter, so that we can then start to protect that perimeter and circle the wagons again, right? Like, we're trying to keep everything in a group. Aside from that, it's an always-on connection back to corporate assets. So you basically boot up and you're connected to the home network, regardless of where you're at, and it's done in a secure fashion. So,
And this
these
really hits
vendors,
on
like
that
these
zero
remote
trust buzzword, right?
Oh
what's
yeah,
that? Zero trust, absolutely, or least privilege, right?
Yeah.
That's the two things. Yeah.
100%.
Sorry, Brian. Right.
No, I was just gonna say, like, you look at that Teams and Zoom and GoToMeeting. I mean, the enhancement that they've made over the last few years, they're not slowing down.
Crazy.
No.
No.
So what you can do nowadays in real time is it's really amazing. And so I see that in another 2 years. What who knows what you're gonna be able to do? I mean, because it's you couldn't get cameras for a period of time, right? Everyone needed a camera for it's like so now it's now. All right. So now what's the next phase? Right. Well, 4K. We want higher quality. We want to be able to do live presentations, almost like webinars, but the ability to real time share and collaborate with prospects. Even we were doing prospecting over Zoom. I'm still doing that. I have one tomorrow. It's
No, I do it all the time.
and there's no and now that's a kind of a business pivot or business change that we're making, because it's like that became so commonplace. I went and met with the prospect on Tuesday. Now tomorrow, all right, I'm going to Zoom. Let's Zoom and go over to the proposal, right? Because that's what works for them. So it's kind of like a hybrid, environment in that regard. But I love it, So it works for everybody.
No, it does, indeed.
I wanted to add one other thing, is that although not necessarily ideal to use a person's home machine or personal machines, there are mechanisms like leveraging a mobile device management solution in Intune through 365 to allow personal device policies, right? So you could say, hey, yeah, we want to allow an access to a subset of data, or based on compliance requirements, as long as these things are in place, you can potentially have access to this subset of resources. So not that you have to always say, hey, you got to get a cloud desktop or go to a terminal server or something, which would be ideal for me personally from a security standpoint. But there are capabilities out there to leverage other tools to secure further those personal devices.
I think there's a good argument for the virtual desktop platform as well when it comes to supply chain issues still exist with computers, right? Like we don't have the availability we had a year or 2 or 3 ago of different computers and such. And so people are trying to drag out their existing investment. Instead of replacing a workstation at 4 years, they're waiting until 6, right? And those machines, as we commented, are running super slow, i3, 4 gig of RAM, blah, 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 blah. But if you're running a virtual desktop and you're using that slow device to simply gain access to that virtual desktop, now you're repurposing that, and you're the performance is ridiculously different because all of the labor, all of the processing is taking
on the other
place
end, yeah.
on the virtual side, and all
Yeah.
that's coming to you is that screen. I mean, I have this little box, and I plug in my mobile phone, and I plug an HDMI cable and a mouse, and I'm running my virtual desktop off of my Samsung phone. So no computer, no device, no anything on virtual desktop. It's insane what you can do.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I think we addressed our top 3-4 issues, and
The only thing we didn't mention around network quality, Dave, you alluded to like SD-WAN. I wanted to mention we've had some big success around a vendor called Big Leaf. They have specifically a device for home networks and what they call QoS or quality of service, right? And they'll figure out, hey, what's on the network and what should we prioritize, and let's make sure that the work traffic is prioritized over all of the Netflix streaming, as an example. So SD-WAN appliances, things like that, or like that Big Leaf, are devices people can consider potentially to address.
Yep, we use they call it an SD-WAN appliance. Arista or Untangle makes them as and you know, they have routers and firewalls, but then they have these little SD-WAN boxes. They have cellular connectivity. They have, you know, or they can do Ethernet, you know, traditional.
Yep.
And I use those in my home office, right? And I can prioritize all that traffic, and I can determine what's going where, and it works very nicely, very nicely. It's a little bit of expense, right? I mean, it was 150 bucks or something.
Right.
Not
crazy,
you know,
though. Not for
but like you said,
at
for
all.
the owner in the mountains, you know,
that's
like,
what I'm saying. Yep. Get them hooked up and let them go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, thanks again. I think we anything else to add here? Are we ready to close out?
I think for now we should close out, because
I think
I could go another hour or two.
It's our understanding, you know, some of the, and one of the reasons of the triggers for this topic today was, you know, we are challenged with hiring people, and we did have a conversation a few weeks ago on the reboot about the hiring challenges, and you know, and us being in the technology space, it goes both ways on hiring talent, but it's just it's a struggle all over. When I'm hearing it from clients, I'm hearing it from
it's not
all different verticals. It's not just us. So if remote workforce is something that you're considering, this is kind of why we brought this up, and some of the security issues and concerns, and some of our recommended solutions for you guys.
I would definitely say, if you're not up to speed, don't do this on your own. Get the help of a professional. Get your IT guy, get your, you know, whoever it is.
Should we put a disclaimer on the bottom here? Should we just say that, you know?
No, I'm just saying, like, you know, it's easy to overlook something, right? And you know, I'll end it with this. I say this all the time, and you guys probably get sick of hearing me say it, but it's like, we got to get it right every time. The hackers got to get it right once. That's all that matters, right? So what time is it that they're going to get it right? And, you know, that's the question.
When is it? Absolutely.
That's right.
All right, guys. Well, thanks again. And we will be here same time, same place next week.
Thank you.
Topic TBD.
Great to see you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, guys.